I'm pretty sure I just watched the last episode of Sister Wives. I don't know if that's true, but that's how it felt. And I feel like the way that this tell-all was done and how it ended with everyone saying they just want to move on and they don't want to keep dredging up things from the past and going back into the past is so toxic, and it doesn't change anything about today and having to answer questions over and over again about the same 10 situations that have happened in this family for 15 years isn't doing anyone any good. And this idea that this apology really made a difference or it tied a bow on, the healing of the family fell flat. We get all the way to the end of this thing, this tell-all, and nothing has changed. Nothing. They are not friends. None of them are friends. They aren't engaging. They don't all think they're going to ever have like a harmonious meeting. They will be friendly with one another, but they are never going to be best friends. There's no going to be a coming back of meeting of minds. They will never be the family unit that TLC tried hard to reconstruct this past season. And while it was interesting for viewers to watch the fallout of the family, what has been less than interesting for viewers this season is trying to watch them act like they still have relationships when it's clear that they don't. They all are living completely different lives. And what this tell-all ignored was all the damage that's been caused as a result. What this tell-all didn't address were the children that have been completely and utterly damaged. Suki regularly tried to victim blame these women for whatever happened in their relationships with Kody, trying to shame them for having outside friendships and relationships. I mean, even trying to draw in Jen as the reason for why Meri left Kody. Yes. Because now, Kody, after 10 years, is now blaming Jen for the reason that Meri left him. Like what? Kody admits to trying to meddle in Meri's life and tell her that, listen, Jen's not a good example for you because she tried to get you away from me 10 years ago. Why does Kody care about if Jen tried to get him away from her? They broke up. Why is he calling her and saying Jen's not a good influence for you, Meri? She's not safe. What are you talking about? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard. This man didn't want her. Didn't want to talk to her. Didn't want to sleep in a bed with her. Didn't want to share a home with her. Nothing. He only wanted her around for the money he was making off of her. And that was it. And now we're supposed to believe that 10 years later that, Meri left him because of Jen. Because now Kody's mad at Jen because Jen tells the truth about Kody and admits that he's not a good person. That he manipulates these people. That he sets them all against each other. That they all abandoned Meri. And that Meri just basically was like no one to any of these people for a decade and scapegoat for like a decade. There's been no talk about the damage that was caused to the children. There's been no discussion about the damage and the lasting effect of Kody's lack of relationships with his kids. Kody was not held accountable for having no relationship with a young child who he is still the legal father of, by the way. Kody's daughter Truly, who he has no ties with, doesn't even live in the same state. I'm sure he has to pay child support now because it's court ordered. But beyond that, there's nothing tying Kody to Truly. They have no bond. But yet, there's no conversations or shaming of Kody for not having a connection with his kids. Nothing. I mean, not even Christine and David talk about it. And I'm sure part of it is because they don't want to talk about the kids and bring the kids' problems into the public. But the problem is that they brought these kids into the public 15 years ago, and now we're supposed to just ignore what Kody's doing behind the scenes to all of these women, so TLC can try to package this ending as though everyone's happy and everyone is moving on. It's a lie. It's a lie. Janelle playing staying sweet and saying everything's great in my life. I'm so happy. I don't need an excuse from anyone. I truly thought that Kody said he was sorry and it was healing bullcrap. Don't believe it. Don't believe it for a minute. Don't believe it for a minute. I don't believe that Jen told Janelle that she should take the money and run. I don't believe that Janelle fired a Jen from being the bug washer. Jen has zero reason to lie in this case. Jen has zero reason to say, I closed my company and I was still doing work for Janelle even right before I closed my company. She never fired me. It's just another lie. It's another lie for them to cover up. Or, Jenna has been equally hard on Janelle for Janelle cutting Meri out, trying to cut her out of Coyote Pass. Janelle being okay for years with Meri getting less than everyone else. Janelle being the bookkeeper and for years not fighting at all for Janelle. I mean for Meri. I mean when everyone was fighting over Coyote Pass for years, Janelle was okay that Meri would get 2 acres and she would get 5. And now that Janelle got her money from Kody, and now that she's settled, she has nothing bad to say about anyone. No, I don't believe that. And now that Christine and David are out, and they're speaking about the harm of polygamy and the damage it causes to families, and we're seeing the kids speak out on social media and talk about the harms it's caused, and the kids saying they have no relationships with their father. We're just going to ignore that, because that's not good for numbers. We're going to ignore everything to do with what actually caused this family to blow up and focus on unimportant moments in time that happened after families broke up. The catfishing situation was after the breakup. It wasn't a romance. It was catfish. Robyn now claiming, yes, I was in the middle of it. And I was telling Kody she was having an affair. And Janelle and Meri and Jen saying, we tried to tell him what was happening. We tried to explain to him that this was a catfish. We were trying to show him the truth about the catfish, warning Meri to make these voice notes and say these things, or else she would get in trouble. He didn't care. It's more important to him to blame Meri for having an affair, even though they weren't formally married, and he had left Meri for Robyn. Nothing was settled. That's all I'm going to say. Like nothing. This whole last hour was repeating catfishing, rehashing Meri's dark time for the 18,000th time. And you know why they keep retelling Meri's dark time? Because that's the last time Meri and Kody had a relationship. She has nothing to draw back from. Or 2 in the last 10 years that has any relevance that would show that the 2 of them had any sort of friendship beyond being on television. Outside of that, Meri led a totally separate life. She rarely ever saw them except for shooting. She moved with them, and she felt like Kody was still controlling her for sure. But they didn't share a bed. They didn't share a home. They didn't share a bond. Kody and Meri were not together. Meri was bound and brainwashed and is finally getting out of that. And I'm proud of her for that. But the reason we have to keep going back to the dark time is because that was when Meri and Kody's relationship was over. That was it. And I feel bad at the end of the day for the kids. Listen, I think all of these women have been put through hell, even to some degree, Robyn, because no woman should be raised in a polygamous cult. No woman should have to believe that their worth is through a man. No woman should be told that the only way that they are going to get to heaven is through marrying a man and allowing the man to have 3 other wives. No woman should be, indoctrinated and brainwashed to accept less and be told that pain is how you get to heaven. But equally, TLC trying to tie up this very messy situation into a bow at the end and say that everyone's moved on, nobody has anything to say, it's all perfect, it's all great, everyone's happy. That's not how life works. Even when we move on and we have new relationships and we have different, experiences, the trauma from the past still stays. And you don't have to settle the trauma of the past for it to still be there. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need to go back 10 years and try to figure out why Kody and Meri didn't work out. I can tell you one thing why it didn't work. Polygamy. Why did the marriages break up? Polygamy. Why did the women all fight? Polygamy. Why were the women all set against each other? Polygamy. Why are they fighting all over money? Polygamy. Why are the kids feeling like they've been ignored and abandoned by Kody? Polygamy. Why is Kody taking no responsibility and acting like he gets away with this, and he can get away with everything, and act like the god that he is? Polygamy. Why does Kody have a high opinion of himself and is egotistical and think that he can use and abuse these women and demand explanations from them? Polygamy. Why does Kody think after 10 years he has a right to tell Meri who her friends are? Polygamy. That's it. Kody will never see these people as individuals. He will never value them as people. He will never see them as independent to him. That he will never value their freedom. He will never value their brains. He will never value their contributions. He will never value them. Kody hates women. And all I watched this tell, all was Suki supporting misogynistic, abusive tropes against women that keep women subjugated and in violence in polygamy. Christine took a giant step forward and finally recognized some truths about her family for the first time in a book. Acknowledging that there was sexual abuse in their cult. Acknowledging that leaders in this cult were hurting children. Acknowledging that there was fraud in this cult. Accepting that she left the cult because of that, because leaders were accused of abusing their children and essaying their children. Christine also took a giant step forward by acknowledging her grandpa was murdered as a result of polygamy. Because another leader who felt he was the one powerful and true, his sect went after all of the people that he felt were false prophets, including Rulon al-Red. Christine's efforts to constantly tell the truth about what this is and what it's doing to people were consistently downplayed and dismissed and diminished. And they tried to make David look like an idiot who doesn't back it. There's been a lot of complaints. I see it on Reddit, about David, and they'll say things like, well, even if he's better than Kody, he's still super conservative. He's still X, Y, and Z. He's still mega. He's still X, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you're not going to take these people out of a cult and suddenly turn them into the Democrats. And why does this have to even be about politics? You can either be on the side of, I don't agree with women being hurt and subjugated and abuse against them, which David clearly is. That doesn't have to be political. It can just be the truth that women shouldn't be taken advantage of. They shouldn't be treated like property. They shouldn't be bartered and sold. They shouldn't be looked at as vacuums and in nurseries for babies. That's and in cars to make money for the man. That's all that they are in this group. And so I hated this season watching the real voices of truth get silenced and diminished by the cult programming that some members in this family still live in. What I learned in this tell-all, at least this week, was that Kody still believes in this cult because he still thinks he can tell Meri that she should have certain friends and that these people aren't safe. I learned that Robyn still will never take responsibility for being nosy and being Kody's spy, and doing Kody's work for him. Because why she interfered in all of these relationships was to live and get what she needed out of it. If Robyn can get him away from the other wives, he can actually spend all of his money on her. She gets what she needs. It doesn't matter to her what else happens, because survival is all that counts for women in polygamy. They are cruel to one another because they are all fighting for the same resources. Why do the women fight? Polygamy. Why do the guys pit the women against each other? Polygamy. Because if the women actually communicated and were able to trust one another, they'd soon understand that the guy is the problem, not them. They would soon understand that this cult is a sham, that the man isn't a prophet and he isn't a god. But if he can keep them fighting, they're never going to pay attention to what he's doing. I wish I could tell you that there was anything in this tell-all that was slightly interesting this last hour, and there wasn't. Robyn says she meddles. Jen says that, Robyn framed her marriage license and put it on her wall, which hurt Meri. And everyone basically abandoned Meri. No one was there for her. No one was there for anyone. Janelle makes up a lie about Jen because Jen has exposed facts about Janelle that are not favorable to Janelle. It is clear that Janelle and Christine are not as close as they once were. They just aren't. It is clear that their polarized and separate views on polygamy has kept them and is drifting them further apart. It is clear that Janelle doesn't like David because David tells the truth about polygamy. And Janelle doesn't like that truth. Janelle might be living in North Carolina. She might be away from Kody, but Janelle is still stuck in that cult attitude. And you don't just move and get away from it. You don't. You have to move through it. And the very last thing that you do when you have spent your entire life in part of a criminal family defrauding systems and welfare and bankruptcy laws and real estate laws is then think that you have the ability to be a life coach and tell anyone else what to do with themselves, because the cult itself also tells them that they are elite and the chosen people. So it's hard for them to break that attitude. It would appear that some of the only people in this family that have actually done some work are Meri and Christine. And that is the truth. So, I think the show is over. If it comes back, it's not going to be for very many shows. The remaking of Discovery is going to be a key factor, and if whether or not this actually comes back. They have a while to figure out if they're going to reboot, but I can't see it lasting anything more than one season. If this wasn't the last show, I will be surprised. So, tell me what your ideas are in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, besties.